Welcome to True House Stories. I am Lenny Fontana coming out of NYC, New York City. And New York's got a great dance music history, as we all know. Disco, Studio 54, Paradise Garage, Inferno, and you name it. Underground, Palladium, Roxy, Roseland, all those great clubs. But us New Yorkers have to go to the Windy City. We got to go west to see and hear some great sounds. And for a while, I've been scratching at this man's door each and every week going, can you do my show? Can you do my little show? Welcome to True House Story. He said, finally came back. He says, I'm going to do it. All right. So now let me tell you who it is. We're going back into the 80s. This guy's been around a long time. Record producer, DJ, keyboard player, artist, record label owner, international success. He's done it from house music to hip hop, gold records, the whole nine. Proud to say that he's a friend, know him, spoken to him over the years, different times. We were in Amsterdam together and all that. And I've always revered, and a lot of us revered, one of his records to be like our anthem. And when we say an anthem, this truly is an anthem. And those that know Promised Land now know who I'm talking about. So I'd like to welcome Chicago's finest to True House Stories, Mr. Joe Smooth. What's up?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lenny.
You're an icon. To me, you're a billionaire and an icon in our music because you have taught us and led the pack, and did things pre to any of us doing it, when we were dreaming about it and you were doing it. And there's a few guys that I can say, God bless, that, legend. That's it. Iconic, legend, billionaire of music. Yes, you're rich. We know that, all that, but we're talking about just what you have given all of us, musically speaking.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's greatly appreciated.
So, of course, I want to say to everybody, welcome, and people are coming in just saying he is the man. People are just right. Yes, Joe. Yes, Joe is the man. Let's get right into it because Joe's going to have a lot to tell us. Everybody knows I asked the same question. It's a redundant question, but it's the show's question. Joe, as a young kid, the young Joe, before the Joe the DJ, Joe the keyboard player, like when you're a teenager, how did you find music or music find you?
How did I find music? So now I mean, it may sound crazy or whatever, but I was a big fan of, it's two sides. So I was a big fan of, like those old black and white movies to Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. So, I was a big fan of all those musical type, old black and white movies back in the day. So I would be into that. And then my mother, so my family is originally from Honduras, and and my mother was very instrumental in bringing. So you had like the Spanish and the groups, the reggae groups, Byron Lee and the Dragonaires and groups like that. Her and her girlfriend were really the first people to bring those groups to the States, and so I was like around music on that side, and then I was also influenced by, artists like Stevie Wonder, the Motown sound. Those were Michael Jackson. Just I'll say the Jacksons.
That's right. It was the Jacksons, right?
Right.
Michael Jackson, right? Jackson.
And hearing that music. When I was a teenager, even before that, I would always think, wow, I want to be able to do that, So so my mother wanted to actually have my sisters learn how to play the piano, so she had bought a piano. So since the piano was in the house, I was busy tinkering around and stuff, trying to replicate what I was hearing, from artists like Stevie Wonder and, the Jacksons and like the Motown sound and stuff like that. So I was, while everybody else was outside playing and stuff like that, I was in the house on the piano for like 6 hours a day, just kind of figure music out. So that's really just me wanting to be able to create those sounds is it's where that whole love and that passion and direction of my direction for music came from.
So let me have this correct. Your sister was formally training to play piano?
No, my mother just bought a piano.
Because I want to know who's got was it by ear everybody's
playing? I'm playing by ear. So I was never formally trained. They never actually got on the piano at all. I just kind of took over the piano, and it was just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like I said, everybody else was outside playing, and I'm in the house trying to create some music. So
wow. So you are gifted then. So you have that gift that you can hear something and just play, figure it out.
Well, yeah, I can, right, and figure it out. And it's even like today, when I hear like if somebody wants me to do a mix or I hear a vocalist, I kind of hear the whole production in my head. And being that I can play, then I'll just go in the studio and knock it out. Like there's a lot of like with the record companies, when I would do remixes and stuff like that, they would always be like, how did you turn that around so fast? Because they could send me something or ask me to do something in the morning, and I send them a finished mix like an afternoon, because I heard everything in my head, and I just like, okay, let me just put it all down, and
so you're trying to say to us the word prodigy is in your vocabulary? You hear that, people? He's just not your regular, cafe con leche. He is the top-notch part of the coffee. He is the man.
It's a passion, and I'd have to say it's a lot of it is just God-given talent, and I think God, will come channel through. You hear the music, the sound. It's like a lot of times when I'm doing mixes, it's I'm doing it almost to what like a lot of remixes I've done they sound like the song should, like they just kind of fit with the song. It's not like it's a mix. Like, a lot of times you hear songs that people do or mixes, and it's like they did music just to kind of and put the vocals on top of it, but the song wasn't really made for the music. And I try to really craft the music to fit the song.
So in the beginning, when you started production work, did anyone take you under their wing, or you just like figured this all out? Went to a store? I
just figured it out. You know what? So
tell us, was it DJing first, and then how did it work for you?
It was. I taught myself how to play when I was like 12 years old. So I was always playing the piano. So in high school, I went to a school here in Chicago called De La Salle. So there was a guy who DJed, who had equipment and all that, named CJ the DJ. So a lot of people know, and so CJ had his own kind of certain sound, and it was interesting. And I was like, wow, I want to be able to do that too. So so I would hang out with CJ a little bit. He showed me like around the turntables. And so I picked up the, skill of DJ, while in high school. So we would do, like high school parties and stuff. When you talk about house music in Chicago really developed from the high school DJs, the teams doing their house parties. And so, we would do block parties, parties in people's yards, people's basements, then you had the high school parties at the, the gym. You had people like Little Lewis, Craig Loftus,
Yo, what's
Uh,
up with those Catholic schools? Wait a minute. Ice Smooth said the same thing. Tyrone said, yo, man, we did these parties at these Catholic school gyms. I'm like,
and
damn,
it was,
it's good, huh?
Mendo, Quigley South, De La Salle, everybody was, doing the party. Mendo was probably the biggest school for doing the high school parties and stuff like that. Then you did have public school like Whitney Young. Well, actually, like all the kids would come to the Catholic schools, the Catholic school parties. Um, so I kind of, developed that skill when I was in high school. Like I said, we would do like, the high school parties and stuff like that. And then from the high school parties, when I went to U of I down in Champaign. Now I was down there with Kevin McFall, Jerry McAllister, um, um, well, just a lot of the cats from Cedric Ball, a lot of the cats from Chicago who were DJs, and we just all got together and we would do all the parties. Chicago had the hottest music, and so when we did the parties, they were like the best parties down there. We would do like some of the AK, the Alpha frat parties. Um, Cedric used to play at a nightclub down there, so I would come down and play at the nightclub down there. And at some point, I went down there like Kevin and Jerry for engineering. So I came back to Chicago and started doing actually went to the Art Institute of Chicago and got into graphic design and then started frequenting a club called Smart Bar on the north side of Chicago. Um, and now I was underage at the time.
Like everybody was.
But like Smart Bar at the time was like an 18 and over club. And so I would go in and, Joe Shanahan, who's still the owner, Smart Bar is probably the oldest, most established club in the US. Um, so he graciously would let me play every now and then in Smart Bar. So this was like going from 82 to 83, 1982, 83. At that point, Mark, who used to be the head DJ, decided to move to New York. And when he decided to move to New York, Joe asked me if I wanted to take his spot and DJ at Smart Bar. So I got into Smart Bar. And so Smart Bar, now back at that time in the 80s, most DJs were programmers and they weren't really blending. And so they really had never really experienced somebody who could mix music together. So that's kind of where the name Joe Smooth came from.
Oh, really? That's where Joe Smooth comes from.
So the bartenders and I was, oh, that's Joe Smooth, because of the way I was blending, because I was Smart Bar originally, was an alternative rock club. I was playing Tears for Fear, Public Image, at the same time mixing it in with like TSOB or Hit and Run or
Thank you, Joe, for mentioning that, because I tell people the same thing was going on in New York. You had to play Duran Duran and all these records to play a black record in between. You couldn't just play a black record because you would have been
right. Exactly. So I kind of introduced that music to that part of the city. Frankie and the Warehouse were more downtown, more on the south end of the city, and the Warehouse at that time was predominantly a black gay crowd, so it wasn't really being exposed to your the more eclectic crowd, I'll say. So black, white, Asian, whatever denomination, whatever. So they weren't getting what Frankie was doing at the Warehouse in any club. So I kind of like brought that over to the north side, and what happened, but it also being that Smart Bar was so eclectic, I would get music that they weren't getting on the south side. you know, and I was hearing all like the funky stuff, stuff that Depeche Mode was doing, Blancmange, groups like that, and finding the cool tracks from, from some of those artists, and exposing the crowd to that kind of music. So you would get Frankie and Ron would come up there to the Smart Bar and kind of take what I was playing sometimes back to the South Side to the kids, to play. So it's historically what happens is you don't hear about my story a lot because as a DJ, because when you're talking about like Frankie and Ronnie, you're getting the perspective of teenagers who were kind of exposed to, this incredible music, this incredible atmosphere, musical atmosphere. And so you're hearing their teenage impressions of what they were experiencing back then. Smart Bar, the crowd that was coming there for the most part was older than me, so you're not hearing, they're adults, they're all older than me now. So you weren't never really hearing that perspective because it was an adult perspective. They were at the club having a good time, drinking and partying. So
that was norm for them.
So,
like they would. It was a watering place,
exactly,
drinking.
Exactly.
They're not jonesing like we were. Oh my God, we were at this.
Right.
Yeah.
They were having a great time.
That guy's good. He's good. That's what they would say. He's good.
Right,
yeah.
Right, exactly. He's good. They were having a good time. Smart Bar. Now, what a lot of people also miss is that when you talk about clubs like the Warehouse and a lot of those parties, most of those, like the original Warehouse held maybe 250 people. So, it wasn't like a major club.
What he said? What did he say? 200. Get this 2,000 people out of your head. 250 intimate party.
Right. It was an intimate party. So the difference, what happened with like with Smart Bar holds about the same, about 250 people. But what ended up happening is because it started to become too popular, and then it went from Smart Bar to Joe opening up the Cabaret Metro upstairs because of the overflow. So we would probably get 1,500 people through there, and so it's people kind of miss the perspective on, what was actually going on. Then with me playing keyboards and stuff like that. So when Ensoniq first came out with the Mirage, so I got like one.
So you had the.
So I would bring that in the Smart Bar.
So you had your Mirage key, Ensoniq Mirage keyboard. Okay. Wow.
In the booth with me. So I had that in the booth. I had a drum machine. So I would just have everything linked up, and I would play along with and kind of create music while I was DJing at Smart Bar. This is where the whole Time to Jack in its house and all that came from. So Chip came in to Smart Bar and said, "Joe, I'm trying to work on this project. I want to put some music out. Could you help me, with your keyboard, drum machine?" So Chip, Kirk Landrum, Eric E.T. Taylor,
wow.
We all got together and created this Jack Tracks EP.
In the club?
Well, no, it wasn't in the club. They came to the house, and then we ended up in the studio.
Got it.
Doing that. But it's just access to equipment. People were trying to get access to equipment back then, because at that time as DJs, everybody was trying to create their own little fresh sound to be able to add something else to their, arsenal of music, So that's where that came from. And then after, doing that with the Jack Tracks EP, chipping around, selling them out the trunk of his car and all that kind of stuff. And it got popular.
The one stop. We call that the one stop. Driving around in 50 pieces, give me some cash. Yo, man, I want $50 or whatever it was for the records, $250 each. Give me my money.
Exactly. So from that, after he did that, then we ended up over at DJ International. Rocky was trying to start up, DJ International. looking for artists, looking for music to put out, because, people were trying to jump on this Chicago sound, whatever the music was, I have to say Jack Tracks and Time to Jack and Its House. It was kind of like they were defining tracks for the genre, because it's like, okay, this is what this music is. Chip was good about that because he's, I guess he went to school for marketing, So his thing was, okay, let's put what this sound is out there, and so from that point, I was really, I think, one of the only DJs who could actually play keyboards. So when I got over to DJ with Rocky, I would end up playing on just about everybody's or helping all the, Fast Eddie, Tyree, all the new artists with their music. It's a long history.
No, but it needs to be, Joe. It needs to be clear. It's Joe. Don't miss anything out. It's perfect. So you wait. So let's make sure we get it correct in the timeline. Rocky has a studio at DJ International. No,
at DJ International. Yeah. So he had a basic studio. He had a basic production room and stuff like that. So what we were doing, we would kind of, go in there, work on stuff. And then there's a recording studio called Chicago Tracks. And Chicago Tracks was a studio up on the north side of Chicago. And rest his soul, Larry Sturm was the main engineer who we would work with all the time. So it was Larry Sturm and Ron Gresham were the two main engineers that we would work with from Chicago Track. So that's kind of how going to studios like that I myself kind of learned how to engineer and stuff like that. Because I would sit there, back in the day, you're using 2-inch tape, and the engineer is sitting there for an hour trying to get your kick drum to sound a certain way, and I'd be like, "This is taking way too long. I need to figure this out." So I would kind of just pay attention to what the engineers were doing. Talk to Larry, talk to Rod, and kind of learn my way around the studio. So after learning my way around the studio bit, then Rocky kind of got me the thing, well, we need our own studio at DJ International. And so, he ended up putting a studio together for the label. And like I said, I was doing a lot of pretty much most of the production. There was Peter Black. There was one of
How Far I Go, Peter Black. I remember him. Yeah.
And so the two of us would do most of the stuff out of DJ International. Then you got, it was so much going on that at the time. So there's a DJ, Craig Loftus. So Craig used to actually do the lights and stuff and do music and edits and stuff for Frankie at the original warehouse. And Craig went to school for engineering. So I brought him into DJ International, and I was like, I really didn't have time to do all this engineer for everybody. So somebody needs to do it. This is your job, So we brought, Craig in to do the engineering for most everybody. So you have the DJ International stuff going on. You have stuff back from Smart Bar, being that when like Time to Jack and these songs came out and the house sound started to kind of permeate around like New York and through Europe, a lot of the labels wanted part of that, So you had groups like I've done stuff for, like the Art of Noise, New Order, Pet Shop Boys, they all wanted that sound with their music. So, I would go, travel around and do projects with people. When the labels wanted to, like when Little Lewis released Nice and Slow, he wanted Tony to do a mix on, and Tony flew me in to actually work on his mix
You talking about Tony Humphreys, right?
For Nice and Slow. The Tony Humphreys mix. So there was a lot, like I said, at that time, house music was the buzzword, and like all the labels wanted to be part of it, wanted a piece of what house music was. They wanted it from Chicago, So so it grew, like I said, in the visibility, the love for the music just started to grow from the infancy and the infancy of the genre in Chicago.
From the actually underground scene, because it really was underground.
Exactly, it was totally underground. Now, a lot of people confuse. There's a confusing part of house music in the story of house music. So there's the house culture, and then there's the genre of music that we created, and so people really kind of need to understand the difference. So you have so back from the house culture comes from like the high school thing. Most of the people like really preppy, underground. The house had its own style. We were wearing Giorgio Armani, Gucci, Fiorucci, all that stuff like that, and that was the culture. Part of the culture was disco. It could have been alternative rock music. It was stuff like the B-52s was part of the house culture. Rod Stewart was part of the house culture. But what people need to understand, that's not really house music, that's the house culture. So what people kind of gravitated globally to was the Chicago house sound, which is a genre of music. So, this people mix the two together and then really are two separate things, and it's really important for people to understand the two separate things. The house genre really started, I'll say the earliest 83, 84 from Chicago, from, us doing tracks and having stuff on tape. And it was just a new style of music. So it's difficult because people want to confuse the two. Want to confuse the disco, the rock, and say that's house, but it's the house culture.
So when you say house culture, because I understand it. So someone who's listening to this for the first time, are we saying like a Rod Stewart record, Don't You Think I'm Sexy, hearing that at a night out, and then what are we talking? Putting a drum beat behind it, a house floor?
No, just the record itself.
In the night.
In the night, right.
So the journey of the DJ.
House. Right. But because it's played at a house party, it's not that's the genre house. So that genre, like I said, it's confusing because people mix the two together.
Right. And that's why I want you to be clear on, so if somebody really understands what they mean, the definition of the house party opposed to the house music.
Right. Yeah. So, right. Exactly. So, and it wasn't about remixing the song or anything. It could be, average Get Lifted, it's the original track. It could be Hit and Run. It could be, whatever, a disco record, just played the way the original disco was. That's part of the house culture. What we were doing, like Move Your Body, Can You Feel It? The songs that were created in the early 80s are part of what house music, the genre is, that people globally gravitated towards and kind of developed the sound off of.
I want to thank everyone who's on Twitch, who's moving from Joe. I don't mean to do this, but I have to kind of want to thank everybody. My people are coming on. Timmy Callahan, Anastasia, Mark Tiny. They're all saying what's up to Joe Smooth. They love you. And they're all house and disco fanatics, and everybody, of course, who's on Facebook here today. It's a wonderful treat having a historian, a guy who was in the pit when it was all manifesting at that time. You were right there. Okay. So back to where we need to clarify this one more time. Children of the dance floor, listen carefully. So a night out in Chicago was a house party, or at a church dance, right? Bang away with Craig Loftus or any of those DJs, Lil Lewis, because I heard reel to reels were brought in, all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay.
Right.
And a night would be a musical journey, because early house records do not have disco loops in them yet. They're not, that's later. The first ones are drum machines and bass lines, or 303 with the acid sound in it, whatever that is. That's what we remember the first initial house record sounding like, you know.
Right. Exactly. So that defines the genre, you know, that's the birthplace there, you know, that everything else kind of spawned from. And
where do you fit in? Where do you fit in the birth? Come on, where are you born now? Because we're trying to find where your part is now.
Well, so it goes, like I said, it goes back to Time to Jack in His House is really the first records that I did with Chip.
So Chippy gets the
you know,
he
those are some of the first records that, like I said, some of the defining points. Yeah. And, you know, because it was Chip's project, you know, I mean, if you look at the label, I'm on there, Kirk's on there.
No, but you know what I mean. Please search for part 2 of this podcast on the platform you're watching or listening to. And please do not forget to follow us.